This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Yesterday, Archwell Public Charity had recognized World Refugee Day. Now, according to the Archwell Public Charity website, Archwell recognized the resilience and strength of individuals who have been displaced from their homes due to conflict, persecution, or violence. These people are such scam artists. Listen to this word salad. Committed to uplifting communities, the Archwell Public Charity supports those resettling, addressing both immediate displacement needs and long-term care, particularly for women experiencing social isolation. Through the Welcome Project, aka American tax dollars, these needs are cared for through social connection and access to vital resources. This week, our team participated in a volunteer day to assemble personal care kits to refugee families in our local communities. These include essential items such as shampoo, conditioner, soap, and bathroom furnishings, and will be donated to families through our partners at International Rescue Committee, IRC. Since 1933, IRC has helped people affected by humanitarian crises to survive, recover, and rebuild their lives and works to welcome those settling in a new home. Now, I've talked about the Welcome Project before and how it is tied to the Biden administration on funds to help all these migrants coming in. I stated before that the government most likely is giving money or from the Welcome Project to Archwell, in which Archwell gives a certain amount to these various little entities and make it look like they are in partnership with them to help get these people resettled. So we see James Holt, the one-man show, doing the photo shoot with a group of volunteers, probably from the IRC. They're definitely not from Archwell, but all to stage and make it look like that Archwell is lending a hand to uplift these communities and get these migrants resettled into society and the community. Remember, I talked about the hiking? What a joke that was. Anyhow, we know that anything that we're seeing here, it's all for optics. I find it interesting that they're celebrating World Refugee Day when Harry himself proclaimed himself as a refugee as he fled the UK in the middle of the night to seek refuge away from the paparazzi. Remember that? For a couple who boldly proclaim that they're both humanitarians and are living and leading a life of service, it's interesting how the last several events or PR postings that they put up on their website shows them nowhere in sight participating in this so-called uplifting of communities. What we see here is James Holt as the front man for this dodgy and corrupt organization, an organization that needs to be audited by the IRS. The question is, why would James Holt take on the liability for these two? At some point, he's going to get screwed over and thrown under the bus. Believe it. The other question I have is James Holt here on a work visa? Like, what's his situation? Is he paying U.S. taxes or is he avoiding paying taxes because he's a UK citizen? That's a rabbit hole that we can visit at another time. Today, I want to talk about Meghan as the humanitarian back in 2016, before she married Prince Harry. Looking back on this Elle article, what's crazy to me is that this woman strategically, in every little detail, mapped out how her brand or her image was going to come across, targeting Prince Harry. Before it was announced to the world on October 30th that Meghan and Harry were dating, nobody knew who Meghan Markle was. Honestly, nobody knew who she was. The deceit started immediately. This article that was published on November 8, 2016, only was released in the UK. But you know what else happened on November 8, 2016? Harry issuing the letter telling the paparazzi to back off his girlfriend. Not only did Meghan hoodwink Prince Harry from the get-go, but she also did it to the whole entire world with these distractions. So while the media was being saturated with this letter that Harry issues from Buckingham Palace, this Elle article in the UK, not the US, in the UK, how convenient, gets published. Now, this was the article that really got onto everyone's radar in, oh, maybe she is a great match for Prince Harry. Look at all the humanitarian work that she has done. And look how grounded she is, but she's able to handle the limelight because she is a celebrity, an actress. And she's able to do both. perfect for fitting into the royal family. This was the stage that was being set. What's really insane to me is how calculating and strategic Meghan was with certain pieces of information and where and who got to see it. So, this article that Meghan wrote for Elle back in November 8th, 2016, was supposed to be exclusively for this magazine. But what Meghan did was she took a blog that she had posted on October 24th, here seen on the TIG with the title How to Be Both. This is not the title that she gave for the Elle magazine article. And in this article on the TIG was about her humble beginnings and growing up, understanding the value of everything, but feeling so fortunate and blessed that she's able to be a compassionate humanitarian and at the same time be an A-list celebrity. No joke. But what we see in the difference between these two articles is Meghan selecting what she puts in and what she keeps out for the public to see. And no doubt, in my opinion, this article or blog that Meghan wrote was for Harry to sell him. Let's take a look at the bullshit that Meghan sold Harry before the world knew that he was dating her. Without a doubt, Harry was visiting this blog and reading everything that Meghan was posting. And he was probably thinking, wow, this is the girl of my dreams. She loves everything that I do. What a coincidence. Let's take a look at this madness. So get comfortable because this is going to be a doozy. You might want to get a vomit bucket next to you because a lot of this stuff is just nauseating. I kid you not. So here we go. I'm consistently asked how I keep a foot in two contrasting worlds. One in the entertainment industry, predicated on wealth and indulgence, and the other in humanitarian work. To me, it's less of a question of how can you do this and more a question of how can you not. Below, I share my candid thoughts on this very topic. I don't know, Flower. You were just born that way. This is my mom's response to the aforementioned question and indicative of the character traits she knows me to have so well. Opinionated, driven, and with a deep desire to effect change. It's just who you are, she says. And yes, she calls me Flower. I'm sitting in my trailer with her in Toronto where we film Suits, now in its 6th season. This is, and of itself, a novelty. The idea of my mom sitting in my trailer on a show which I'm a series regular, and that's lasted more than half a decade. It's surreal. We never would have dreamt that this would be my reality, our reality. As my mom eats the special order of scrambled eggs the production assistant just brought her from the catering truck. This is not where we come from. Yes, my hometown is Hollywood, California, but what you think of as the city of angels and what I know to be home are two very different things. So let's begin there. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, a California girl who lives by the ethos that most things can be cured with either yoga, the beach, or a few avocados. I'm being cheeky, clearly, but it speaks to the temperament I grew up around. With a free-spirited clinical therapist for a mom and the most hardworking father you can imagine, a television lighting director by trade, I always had a foot in two worlds because their work and home environments were so vastly different. With my mom, we spent time traveling to remote places, taking trips to Mexico, where I saw children play in the dirt roads, peddling chiclets for a few extra pesos to bring home. My mother raised me to be a global citizen with eyes open to sometimes harsh realities. I must have been about 10 years old when we visited the slums of Jamaica. I had never seen poverty at that level, and it registered in my glazed brown eyes. Don't look scared, Flower, she said. Be aware, but don't be afraid. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. Glazed brown eyes in Jamaica? Come on now. So here is Meghan already subliminally psychologically manipulating Harry. Ever wonder why she chose her mother instead of her father to talk so glowingly about? Look at what she writes here. My mom raised me to be a global citizen. Well, what do you think Diana did for her sons? She exposed them to a life outside of the palace, showing what the rest of the world looked like. So she's now putting out this story of how she was exposed to the harsh realities of the world. And notice that she uses the term global citizen. Harry knows that term very well from the World Economic Forum and the globalist mindset. Now she talks about her father. Notice how she plays him down. My father was the lighting director on 2 television shows as I was growing up. Notice she doesn't mention that he was an Emmy Award winner. Anyhow, and there I was behind the scenes of a glossy soap opera and a TV sitcom surrounded by famous actors and their glam teams, multi-million-dollar budgets, and crew lunches that always included filet mignon and enough sweets to make you think you were at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. What I didn't know then was that just 20 years later, I would appeal to the executives on my show to ensure that our extra filet mignon and sweets aplenty were no longer thrown away, but rather donated to a soup kitchen I had been volunteering at since my arrival in Toronto, or that they would say yes. Despite the contrast of my 2 worlds growing up, there was a powerful commonality. Both my parents came from little, so they made a choice to give a lot, buying turkeys for homeless shelters at Thanksgiving, delivering meals to patients in hospice care, donating any spare change in their pocket to those asking for it, and performing quiet acts of grace, be it a hug, a smile, or a pat on the back to show ones in need that they would be all right. This is what I grew up seeing. So that is what I grew up being, a young adult with a social consciousness to do what I could and to, at the very least, speak up when I knew something was wrong. And wasn't Diana all about the human connection? Remember when she went to visit those AIDS patients and she hugged them? She just wanted to show that connection, and the element of human touch was something that the royals really weren't all about, but Diana was. And I think this is probably what Harry started to see. You know, when Harry saw this photo, he subliminally thought of his mom. This was not on accident, but this was purely intentional, knowing that he was going to see it. Now, of course, this photo didn't make it into the LUK article she wrote. Neither did the story about her mother going to Jamaica with her and Meghan talking about her eyes glazing over. But anyhow, I continue. I was just 11 years old when I was in my classroom at Hollywood Little Red Schoolhouse, and a commercial came on for a popular dishwashing liquid. The tagline of the campaign said, "Women all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans." The boys in my classroom yelled out, "Yeah, that's where women belong, in the kitchen." My little freckled face became red with anger. I went home and wrote letters to powerhouse feminist attorney Gloria Allred, to a host of a kids' news program, to the soap manufacturer, and to Hillary Clinton, who was our first lady at the time. No, she wasn't. With the exception of the soap manufacturer, they all pledged support, and within a few months, the commercial was changed to "People all over America are fighting greasy pots and pans." One other point that I'd like to raise is that Gloria Allred wasn't known until 1995 with the O.J. Simpson trial. So how would Meghan have known to write to Gloria Allred? And the last point I'd like to make about this is that even if, let's say, the small chance that Hillary Clinton did write Meghan back, her idol, don't you think she would have saved it, framed it, stored it in a safe place, as this was a defining moment in her awareness of becoming this feminist? Let me tell you what really happened. Meghan wrote one letter to the soap company, and she didn't receive a response back. Meghan would not have written 3 other letters, as she's too lazy to do so. Continuing on. I spoke about this in a speech I gave for International Women's Day with UN Women just 2 years ago. It is a testament to the fighting spirit I had as a young girl and the responsibility I now feel as a grown woman, and even more so as an actress. The moment Suits became successful and I realized people, especially young women, were listening to what I had to say, I knew I needed to be saying something of value. This is also, in part, why I started this website, The TIG. I knew that girls were checking the site to see fashion tips or how to get a stellar blow dry, but in reframing the beauty content to include think pieces about self-empowerment or feature dynamic women such as Fatima Bhutto, I was hoping to integrate social consciousness and subjects of higher value than, let's say, selfies. A subtle means to pepper in what really matters. Give me a break. And don't get me wrong, the entertainment industry matters. It gives people an escape, a catalyst to laugh, to reflect, and to balance the realities of life. Plus, my gig as a working actor in The Hand That Feeds Me. Without that hand, I could never be the hand that feeds another at this level. Were it not for my show and website, I would never have been asked to be a global ambassador for World Vision or an advocate for UN Women, both of which are honors I relish. And it makes sense that I see it that way because while most become starstruck by A-list actors, you'll only see me gobsmacked with delight in the face of leaders affecting change. Bullshit. Put me in a room with Madeleine Albright or former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, and for once in my life, you'll find this girl with the gift of gab unequivocally without words. Okay, right, Meghan. Harry must have been reading this and looking at this and saying, wow, this is the girl of my dreams. Look at her in Africa, just like my mom. Anyhow, it was just last year that I was in the van heading back from Kiembe refugee camp in Rwanda. I was in the country as an advocate for UN Women. I had a week of meetings with female parliamentarians in Kigali celebrating the fact that 64% of their government are women, the highest in the world. Well, Megan, do you know why that is? There's a thing that happened in Rwanda, like a genocide, to where a lot of the men were killed. So they really don't have that much of a choice to have women in parliament, right? But nah, she doesn't want to disclose that. That busts the narrative out. I was also spending time speaking with grassroots level female leadership at the refugee camp a few hours outside the capital city. Driving back on the dusty roads that day, now back on the grid of tech and Hollywood, I received an email from my managers with a request for me to attend the BAFTAs. I had never been and had always romanticized the idea of it. And per the email, a high end jewelry company was going to fly me in, get me dolled up in the fanciest of gowns, and I would travel straight from Kigali to Heathrow to the makeup chair and immediately onto the red carpet. What a coincidence that the BAFTAs are in the UK. Never been invited to any other award show, but the BAFTA she was invited to? Listen to what she says next. My brain, heart, spirit couldn't shift gears that quickly. From the purpose driven work I had been doing all week in Rwanda to the glitz and glamour of an award show, plus the pomp and circumstance that comes with it? No, my heart said, and it wasn't a soft whisper to myself. It was a lion's roar. Because I looked out the window, seeing a world of verdant beauty that had been riddled with genocide and unrest only 22 years prior, but having recovered with a decisive choice to be better, to overcome. The children's magnetic smiles, the rolling fields, the goats, and thump, thump on the ground as we drove, my decision was clear. My gut said no. While my two worlds can coexist, I've learned that for me, being able to keep a foot in both is a delicate balance, because while they are not mutually exclusive, guiding my heart through the swinging pendulum from excess to lack of access is sometimes challenging. Anybody really believe that Meghan was invited to the BAFTAs? What a joke. Meghan showed us who she was when she showed up to that Lion King premiere in that tacky looking dress, as opposed to going and doing her service for the veterans. She showed who she was, and so did Harry at that point. It's almost over, folks. Just bear with me. When I gave the speech for International Women's Day and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon led the standing ovation, no, he didn't, and there was no ovation for Meghan, I thought, this right here, this is the point. To use whatever status I have managed to garner as an actress and maximize my opportunity for impact with the moments of value that resonate far greater than an audition ever could. I never wanted to be a lady who lunches. I always wanted to be a woman who works. And this type of work is what feeds my soul and fuels my purpose. The degree to which I can do that both on and off camera is a direct perk of my job. Of course, Harry is reading this and he's all in. He's sold by now. He's like, yeah, we're going to do all of this together, this life of service. What a sucker. Meghan knew enough to know that Harry did not want a high maintenance woman. Look at Chelsea Clinton, Cressida Bonas. Neither of the two were high maintenance ladies. But here's the other thing I think is often misconstrued. The assumption is that by doing humanitarian work, that there is some sort of savior mentality, when the truth is that the connections you make on these trips have so much reciprocity. Huh? If there is an imbalance, it is most certainly the other way around. I returned to Rwanda earlier this year as a global ambassador for World Vision, and while I was there, met a young girl named Claire, whom I immediately felt drawn to. She was on the third hour of her walk to bring her father medicine, a task that for most of us would be a quick Uber to the pharmacy. I doubt that even happened, Megan. These small moments of perspective anchor me to what's important. And in my industry, that is often riddled with superfluous demands. My barometer of what's valuable is validated on these trips. Not to mention, when I share my photos with my friends, they note that undoubtedly I never looked happier than I do when I'm on field missions. It's a different smile than the one for the paparazzi. It's the one that doesn't require any retouching. Interesting that she says any retouching. On this very same trip, she brought with her Gabor Jarina, the photographer, the one that she was, making salad with. Anyway, this this woman, she put this all together and you can tell that she was writing it with Harry in mind to position herself to make her look like she is just this low maintenance woman who equally loves humanitarian work and, could have a life fulfilling with doing this type of stuff. I'll be honest with you, if Harry was into snowshoeing in the Arctic, you can bet that Meghan would have had a photo shoot somewhere with an igloo and Eskimos, no doubt. Meghan was ready to turn into whatever Harry wanted at that point in order to trap him. And that's what she did. With fame comes opportunity, but in my opinion, it also includes responsibility. To advocate and share, to focus less on glass slippers and more on pushing through glass ceilings. And if I'm lucky enough, then to inspire. Let me pause for a second. This blog was written before it was announced that she was dating Prince Harry. So for her to say less on glass slippers, obviously she's referring to Cinderella. This woman was so calculating. Wow. A truly impactful moment for me was when a teenage girl, Emily, who follows me on social media, shared a letter saying my aid work inspired her to do a humanitarian trip to Costa Rica. She happens to be on the trip as I write this piece, and I check her Twitter updates grinning widely, seeing myself in her and remembering my days volunteering on LA's impoverished Skid Row when I was her age. I see what Emily is doing, and I think, yes, whatever I've said and shared has landed somewhere, and this incredible young woman has decided to hashtag be the change she wishes to see in the world. Whatever small part I had to do with that is the most affirming and humbling part of my life. In a nutshell, to hook Harry and reel him in, so be it an Instagram post that tags hashtag adopt don't shop with a photo of my rescue pups, a speech advocating for women's rights, a trip to a refugee camp in Rwanda, or traveling to Afghanistan to support our troops overseas. These are facets of my life that I share with as much gusto as I do behind the scenes photos with my cast. Perhaps more so. And while my life shifts from refugee camps to red carpets, I choose them both because these worlds can, in fact, coexist. And for me, they must. My 11-year-old self would be proud because while I may not have realized it at the time, I, in fact, have always had a foot in the world of entertainment as well as a world of public service. My life now is simply a more heightened version of that very reality in which I grew up. And truth be told, it's the most beautiful gift I never knew I always had. When you look back on when this all started, nobody knew who she was, so everyone gave her the benefit of the doubt. And all of this was done to trap Harry. And now look where we are. They don't do any kind of humanitarian work unless it's for a photo op and they're getting paid for it. You just saw what Archwell did in putting up a post about World Refugee Day, but they're nowhere in sight. In my opinion, what Meghan did to get that ring on her finger was so evil. Because when you really think about it, is that Harry married a woman that he didn't even know. And it was only after the ring was on the finger and the ink hadn't even dried, you started to see the type of person that Meghan was. Someone who was selfish, who really was not a nice person, and indeed that high maintenance person that Harry would have never have gone for if he had known the real Meghan to begin with. When you look back at a lot of the early stuff, when nobody knew who Meghan was, the things she was saying, like for instance, this piece that was written in The Sun early on when it was discovered that they were dating. It says here, the LA-born actress left confessed she has never got over the fear of being snapped at film premieres or modeling shoots as she finds publicity daunting. She said, I don't think they ever get comfortable. I think it's a strange expectation, even though people assume that as an actor, you are comfortable modeling. The red carpet is like being a model, but cameras are everywhere, so you don't know exactly where to look. And as women, we all have things that we are self-conscious about. Says the woman who can spot a camera 100 miles away. Okay, Meghan. So, in closing, looking back on the earlier days on things that Meghan said and her behavior, it's eye-opening to see how this woman played the role of her life to get that ring on her finger. It's really sad that she wasn't genuine about it because she could have really have done some great things and they would have moved forward. But now Meghan has trapped a man who most likely is not going to fill whatever destiny he had saw himself fulfilling as a result of this vulture coming in and preying on the kindness and goodness of the royal family. And I think that says a lot about Meghan. I mean, we already know that she's trash, but it says something about her from a psychological perspective. And that's what makes Meghan so dangerous, because it's people like this who are willing to lie, cheat, steal, and even kill to get what they want. And quite frankly, I don't think Meghan would lose any kind of sleep if she had to remove someone from the equation because they're in her way to whatever it is she's trying to get. Now, it's definitely a tough situation for the royal family. I'm glad to know that Meghan will never be in the same orbit again as the members of the royal family. But the concern is Harry crawling back and being welcomed in, and she's snaking her way back in. At the same time, we know that Meghan is capable of a lot of things and getting people to do some of her dirty work, which also is a concern. But I think the royal family has enough resources in place in order to put a stop to whatever it is that Meghan is going to try and do next, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that these two are going to end up getting divorced? Do you think that Harry's going to live out his life miserable with this witch? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
You're such a fraud.